Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Okay, welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I am your host, Duck, and today is not Lightroom edition. Hold on.
No.
Today is Photoshop edition. There we go. Not pressing the correct buttons today, it seems. Anyways, I was saying that last week's recording got my computer glitched and I had to force stop OBS, which does the recording for me, and I lost all but 8 minutes, and I'm hoping that I fixed that problem. Unfortunately, I did not have time to load. If you have the Creative Cloud account for the photographer's package, which includes Photoshop, Lightroom, all the variations of Lightroom, plus Adobe Camera Raw, you'll have noticed that there was a update available across the board for all those programs, and a lot of the changes have been significantly done to Lightroom, not Lightroom Classic, which is what I normally use for teaching, but Lightroom. I still prefer Lightroom Classic because it has all the bells and whistles, and the latest version of Lightroom now has incorporated things like smart galleries, which we've had in Lightroom Classic forever. Unfortunately, with Lightroom, it only works with images that are up in the cloud. So it's like unless you are a travel photographer where you need that kind of service, I don't see. I don't know. I don't waste my time with it because it's just too many things that can go wrong with it. But anyway, I do not have a chance to update any of my software since the latest editions came out. So I'm not going to cover any of the updates. But today we are going to work on something fun. Allen had contacted me and he says, hey, he went out and took photos of the full moon. That was what, 2 weeks ago now?
No, a month.
Oh, was it a month ago already? Wow, time flies.
That happens when we get older.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for trying to help me out with my camera problem last week. I did some reading after class, and something said to clean the connectors, and I did that, and it's working better.
Oh, really? That simple, huh?
Yes, and the other thing was, I was having a little trouble focusing, and from what I've read, it was expected for the type of lens I have. And the review said, it's an 18 to 132, and it said it works better at medium length and long length than it does at short length. So it's working as designed. Let's put it that way.
Awesome. How did you clean the contacts?
Oh, what I did is, I'll show you. Let me turn on my camera. The contacts are at the bottom of the camera, of the lens opening, the lens. So I just took one of these things that you could buy at a grocery store. There we are.
Oh, yeah.
And
Like
I felt this was not harmful for cleaning it. And I didn't put anything. It says don't wet
no.
the connections. So that's what I did, and it was working better.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, one of the tricks that I was taught way back when, going, I don't know how many years, when it comes to, and I think, let me grab a lens real quick.
Probably scummed up some of the oxidation.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
that's probably what cleared it up.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah,
Oh,
that's what they say is, these contacts here,
yes.
all right, they start getting, like Bob said, oxidation. And one of the things that I was taught was that a number 2 rubber eraser
I
will.
read that once too, and I had that problem with the camera and it didn't fix it,
Oh,
unfortunately.
really?
I
Oh,
had to
really?
take it out I had to take it out to be.
Because the theory is well, obviously those pencil erasers, there's enough grit to remove any oxidation, but it's soft enough not to do any damage to the actual electronic part. The only thing is that you need to be careful how you do it so you don't get any particles down into the lens. So you have to kind of like do it.
I was careful to really just get on the connectors with this thing.
Yeah.
And I think this is abrasive enough. It's light, it's these things you buy for $1.98 in the store in a little package. So I
Right,
felt this
right.
was good enough.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So anyway, actually, why don't we just have Alan tell us a little bit about, let's see, we'll switch. Oh, let me go ahead and share. Share. There we go. These are the images that Alan sent.
That's in look from West Haven looking to New Haven, and we're waiting for the sun or the moon to come directly over the lighthouse. But as you can see, the background's a little dark. Well, it was a cloud cover at 7 o'clock when the sun or moon was supposed to come up.
Right.
And I waited and waited and waited, and I said, "Oh heck!" So when it finally did come up, it came up behind the clouds. Then it came out a little bit further. Then it came all the way out. But that was
Right.
like an hour afterwards. And I was asking Doc. I says, "Well, can I put them? Show me how to put them together, so I could play around with it. And I want to make it, one photo with a huge moon behind it, extraordinary large. Really Photoshop it."
Right. Now, let's see.
I don't know how the first moon or the quality of the photograph. It was two clouds or too cloudy, I should say.
Right. Um, the the images, these are all different sizes, and some of these are really small.
But yeah, they're 1500.
Yeah. Some are 1800. Are all these just cropped or?
Let's see. Well, the moons, yes.
All right. So, okay. All right. So, yeah. So what Alan wants to do is he wants to merge some of these moon photos with the lighthouse photos. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. And in this particular case, because it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because all of the images are slightly different sizes. So I have to, we're going to need to really manipulate some stuff. But what I'm looking at is this image and this image and, well, even this image. Here, let me just put them, isolate them. There's a one of the things that draws me, oh, what the heck? Come on. Oh, my, hold on. What's not working here? Let's go here. Is my, okay. We have a, oh, come on. My drawing, my little scribble. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. We have a lot of open sky that is available. And we have a very delineated, horizon line that separates the sky from the foreground. All right. And the other thing is, like, in comparison to the, all right, so these first two are the New Haven Lighthouse at Lighthouse Park.
Correct.
I'm not recognizing the last lighthouse. Which one is that? Do you know?
Yeah, it's on the same area. It's just if you look further to, it's on a jetty that is about a half mile down.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever
East,
noticed
it's in East
that.
Haven. Yeah, it's in East Haven.
Oh, East Haven Lighthouse. Okay. All right. Um, obviously, the ones, these two, um, you have a tree line. So what Alan wants to do is he wants to place the moon behind, right? Kind of, sort of like
Yes.
this, or like this.
Yeah.
All right. So on these two, you have, it can be done. All right. And the thing is, you have the tree line, which kind of distracts a little bit, but we'll play around with it and see what we get. What initially drew me was this one. All right.
Yeah.
Because now you have the element of simplicity working for you as a strong compositional a strong compositional element, which now, if we were to drop the moon here, nice and big, there aren't a lot of other visual elements to kind of distract your eye as you do in the first two, So I kind of like this one here. We'll do this one first, and then we'll play around with the other lighthouse and see what we get. But I think this one's going to be the stronger of all of them, simply because there isn't a lot of visual distractions. And then we have a sampling of 3 moons. Obviously, with varying degrees of colors and sharpness. The first two, obviously, I don't know how heavily cropped for these, but there's definite atmosphere happening here, which is going to soften a lot of the detail to begin with. But that's not super critical. I mean, you don't really need a very sharp moon, behind the lighthouses. All right. The last one, wow, that one's sharp. That one's, whew. Let's see if we can. All right.
We can see the man on the moon.
Yeah, really. All right. So the nice thing about this one is that it's a full moon with absolutely no atmospheric disturbances, across the face, and there's no color cast, so we can add our own color to it to blend it in with the scene. All right. So we have a lot to play with. Okay. And to tell you honestly, all right, so I like this particular image um, for its simplicity, okay? But there's really nothing going on in the sky, all right? So my train of thought, all right, and you got to realize that what I'm presenting is my opinion. It's my subjective opinion. It's not necessarily the right opinion. All right. But hopefully it'll give you, if you were thinking of going in a different direction, hopefully it'll give you something to think about. But my train of thought here is to use something that has atmosphere. All right, let's fit that in. That one or this one, okay? And have that atmosphere become another element within the simple composition of this particular lighthouse. All right, if that makes sense. Okay. So let's give that a try. And then we'll play around with some other ones. Okay.
All right.
And we'll get your input and see what you like. So the first thing that I normally do is I will normalize and do a certain amount of editing right in Lightroom before I exit it out. But to be honest, I don't think these need anything. If anything, I don't know if this will benefit from a little bit of sharpening with some clarity. All right. The color's not necessarily going to provide any issues that I can think of. So, but the color we can always modify after the fact in Photoshop as well. Okay. So maybe just knock down that yellow just a touch. So it's not so bright. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and select both the lighthouse and the moon. Now, normally, the way I would bring this into Photoshop is I would right click and I would go to edit in and then open as layers in Photoshop. Okay. But because both of these are two different sizes, I'm not going to do that simply because the moon photo, all right, I don't know if you guys can see this. Let's see. The moon photo is 1800 by 1400. All right, so 1800 on the long edge. But I'm looking at the lighthouse, that's only 900. All right, so it's literally half the size. So what would happen is if I were to open both of these in Photoshop as a stacked image, it will open it to the larger of the two. And because I'm going to be compositing the moon into the lighthouse one, more than likely what I would need to do is I will need to resize this moon in order to fit within the frame of the lighthouse. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to end up with a blank border all the way around. So I'm going to avoid that hassle, and I'm just going to import them individually. So I'm going to select the two, edit in, and then just regular edit in Adobe Photoshop. And in in this case, because it's JPEG, it's asking if you want to edit the original. Okay. All right. So there's the moon, and actually it loaded up pretty quickly because they are very small images. All right. Hopefully your raw files are a little larger. Okay. So that way you'll be able to manipulate them a little bit better. Okay. Always better to operate with raw files or TIFF files at the worst. All right, so we're going to take the moon, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab on the side here on my layers. I'm just going to click and drag to the tab for the lighthouse. And I'm going to go ahead and drop it into here. And as you can see, we're pretty large. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit. And hopefully you can see that there's this little blue border all the way around with the white anchor points in the corners.
Yep.
It's literally twice the size of the lighthouse. So what we need to do, of course, is we're going to need to size this down appropriately. Now, while we are talking about resizing, we have to make our first decision to our composition. Okay. What size do we want to go with the moon behind the lighthouse? Do we want to go, ridiculously, cartoonishly large? Or do we want to make something that's a little bit more believable? All right. Any preference, Alan?
Yes, I like to have ridiculously large.
Okay. Ridiculously large it is. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower the opacity a little bit just so I can kind of visualize the size. All right. And that looks ridiculous. All right. Okay. Second decision is, do we want the moon above or below the horizon?
I
right.
kind of like it right where it's at.
Okay. All right. So now that we've reduced it, let me go ahead and make this a little bit larger. Okay. Now I'm looking at this, and before I commit to the size that I'm going to use, because remember, when we're taking it from a large to a small size, so we're going to lose pixels. Okay. Now we could have turned this into a smart object so we don't lose the pixels. But the way I look at it, I'm never going to go upward in size to that large, huge moon that we had originally. So we don't need to. All right. However, keeping that in mind, what I don't want to do is I don't want to make it too small where now I says, oh, I should have gone bigger, because now going down, we're going to lose pixels. Stretching it back up, it's going to have to invent pixels. And this is where we start getting into some image degradation. So I want to make as many of the initial important compositional decisions right here, right now. Okay. If I need to, I can restart the process, because I obviously, I have the original here on its own file. I can always re-drag it in. Oh, there it is. And I lost, just by clicking over, it looks like I lost those changes. Okay. All right. So we know we want it ridiculously large. Okay. Let me zoom in. Okay. And now we want it slightly above the horizon. Okay. And then now I'm looking at the moon. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the lighthouse, and the lighthouse has a definitive uh, light section above. Okay, so it's light here. I don't know if you guys can read that. All right, and dark below. Okay, and then there's this demarcation line. So now I can say, okay, well, if I place the moon so that the bottom of the moon coincides with that demarcation, that creates what's called a visual tangent. Okay. And visual tangents can be interesting because they can provide a visual interest, sometimes a humorous effect, but sometimes it could also be distracting. All right. But the nice thing is here, because I brought the opacity down, I can kind of sort of preview what's happening here and make a decision as to how I want to handle this. All right. So obviously I think I'm gonna reduce the size of the moon a little bit smaller so I'm not hugging the top of the frame. All right. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like that visual tangent with that two-tone demarcation. What do you think?
No, you're right on the button on that. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very interesting.
All right. So if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and commit to that particular size. All right. And bring it up. Okay. So now we see that there's a definitive tonal difference between the sky for our moon and the sky for our lighthouse. And because of the placement of the moon within the frame of its original file, we have an area here that is missing from that that we need to contend with. All right. So there's a couple of ways we can go here. All right. And one of the things we can decide is, okay, the sky with the moon, all right, is obviously relatively much darker than the sky for the lighthouse. All right. As a matter of fact, if we look at it, it's even darker than the water. All right. So here's the water, and you can see up against the sky of the moon, that sky's a lot darker. Okay. So if we were to keep that dark of the sky, and just kind of replace this upper area here with that dark sky, it's going to look off. All right, because then you're going to have a sky that's darker than the ground, and that's usually not what happens in reality. Okay, so we can darken the water. All right, but then if we start darkening the water, we're going to start losing some of that nice detail. And I kind of like this. Okay, so my thinking is to lose the darkness and just keep the light parts of this image. Okay, that's my thought. Okay, and then if that's the case, then I probably don't need to worry about this, this missing section here. All right, because we're literally going to take the light section and fill in all this dark area with the lighter stuff. Okay. All right. One way we can do that is we can use our blend if. Okay. Because we have basically three different tones going on here. Okay. We have a very dark area here. Okay. And we have a very light area here for the moon. And then we have kind of like this mid-tone here for this little upper section of sky. Okay. So we'll see what we can do. Okay. All right. The other thing is, in order to get rid of that hard edge where there isn't enough of an image, we're going to need to rely on some masks. Okay. All right. So we can tackle this in one of two ways. We can do the blend if, see what that gives us, or we can say, let's mask out the moon and then play with the blend ifs. All right. But in my thinking, I think I would go with the blend if first, just to see how the moon interacts with the background. So what I'm going to do.
What is blend if?
Okay. I'm glad you asked, because that's the route I'm going to go. All right. So I have the moon. Actually, let me go ahead and let me rename these. I'll rename that moon. Oops. Let me unlock this layer and we'll rename that lighthouse. Lighthouse. Okay. All right. So I have the moon layer selected, and in this open area, this blank area of the label, if you double click, it brings up the layer style dialog box. And by default, it opens up in the blend if function. Okay, blending options. All right, so let me cancel this out for 1 second. All right. You're probably familiar with layer blend modes right here in this little drop down, correct?
Yes.
You can use the lighten. Oh, actually, all right. That looks
like
kind of
Jupiter.
cool. Screen. Oh, that looks pretty wild too. So these are typical layer blend modes, all right, that are available to you to play with. Okay. When we double click on the layer, it brings up the layer style dialog box. And you're going to notice that we have right here, okay, our blend modes. Okay, everything that was available from that previous, the layers is available right here. Okay, including opacity, your layer opacity. Okay, and you also have fill. All right, fill is for certain special blend modes. Okay, you also have access to the red, green, and blue channels for knockouts and all kinds of weird, funky stuff we're not going to get into. But the lowest part, this is what I'm interested in, this section. And we've covered this a little bit in the past. And this is our layer blend if. Okay. So blend if is basically saying, if anything is lighter than or darker than 50% gray, all right? Because we're going to use our default here is gray, all right? Anything lighter than or greater than 50%, all right, we can manipulate. So how does this work? Okay. Our current layer that is selected is the moon layer, all right? So this layer that says current layer, this is our moon, okay? And then the underlying layer, all right, is anything below, all right? In this particular case, we only have one, which is our lighthouse, all right? But in essence, it would be all the layers below the current layer that is creating your image, okay? All right, and we can manipulate either the layer we are working on, or we can manipulate the layers underneath to interact, okay? So let me show you how that goes, all right? Because our moon layer consists of, remember we said it's got 3 distinct tones, light, medium, and dark, very distinguished, you know, light, medium, and dark tones, okay? It'll be very easy to illustrate what we mean, okay? What we're saying is everything from, let's see if we can, everything, it's my Zoom's not going to let it. Everything from this little pip here to this little pip, all right? So this is my whites, and this is my blacks, right? Okay. Everything from here to here is going to be protected, meaning that it's going to be visible, okay? Anything outside of that is going to allow the underlying layer to show through, all right? So now if I take this, the white, okay, all the way here, all right, and I start bringing it up, you're going to notice that we are starting to get holes in our moon layer, okay, where the lighthouse layer is starting to come through. And that's because all those light pixels that are in the moon are now being hidden, all right? So remember, we are protecting everything between these 2 little arrows, okay? So all of this is now becoming invisible. We're poking a hole in it. Make sense?
So the blue that's showing up, that's an indicator, that's indicating that's being more transparent or more brighter or darker.
All right. So no, it has nothing to do with any of the values down below. It's simply everything on that moon layer. Okay. So remember, even though we're dealing with color, all right, the underlying structure is luminosity. Okay, luminosity. So we have, actually, let me go ahead and switch this back, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually want to get rid of all this dark stuff, okay? So everything that is dark, all right, we're going to use the dark side of the slider, and we're going to start bringing it in, all right? And what it's doing is it's making those pixels invisible, all right? Remember, again, we are protecting everything between here and here. Anything that falls outside of it is going to become invisible. All right. So this is, everything here is protected. All right. So this is visible on that moon layer. And then here, everything that is outside of it is invisible. Okay? All right. And because it's invisible, we can see everything underneath it. Make sense?
Yeah, yes.
All right. It takes a while to get used to this concept because the thing is that this is a temporary, non-destructive method of hiding pixels that is not using a mask. Okay? All it's doing is it's using the luminosity value of the individual pixels. All right? So we're telling everything that is very, very dark to black, just disappear. Okay? Just disappear. And we're going to allow the underlying pixels to come through. Okay? All right. If we go with the underlying layer, it behaves a little bit differently. All right. It works the same way in a sense where the current layer will start getting holes punched into it, but it's not dependent on the pixels of the current layer, right? So we have the moon layer selected, okay? And let me move this out of the way here, all right? And if you remember, the lighthouse had very distinct tones too. The water was very dark. The jetty and the lower part of the lighthouse were even darker, but the upper part of the lighthouse was brighter, probably the brightest part of all of it, okay? So if I wanted to protect those bright points of the underlying layer, I just start bringing this in and it's punching a hole. All right, you can see how we're seeing the top part of that lighthouse. All right, so the hole we're punching in the moon layer is based on the pixels underneath it. Okay, because we are working with the underlying layer with this slider. Okay. Whereas if we were to work with this slider, which is the current layer, which is our moon layer, all right, if we move this slider, we're punching a hole in the light pixels of the moon. Okay. The bottom layer brings the light pixels of the lighthouse through. All right. So it takes a while to get this concept, but once you get the concept, it's opens up a lot of avenues for us. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to probably do a combination of layer blend and blend F. Okay. So while I have this open, I have access to both the layer blend mode. All right. We kind of saw this earlier. I kind of like the screen. That does a weird, lighten does a weird color shift. I'm not liking it. The screen I kind of like. All right. So because we're working with a blend mode, again, it works from that 50% gray. So anything that is 50% gray or darker, the darker the value, the more it disappears. Okay. Or we could even do, let's see, multiply, darken, no, lighten. Yeah, I think screen's going to be our best choice here. Okay. Now, because the moon is brighter than 50% gray, and this kind of like upper area, it was kind of close to that 50% gray. All right. uh, it interacts. It doesn't quite completely disappear. All right. As a matter of fact, it's brightening up our sky. So we're going to need to create a mask for this. All right. But that's okay. What I'm looking for in particular is not so much the sky on the outside. I could care less about that. I want to see how the clouds, let me turn this off. The clouds that go across the front of the moon, that's what's creating that feeling of atmosphere. Okay? That's what's creating the feeling of atmosphere. All right, so what we could do is we could remove some of it with our blend mode, okay? But it's going to leave, you know, these weird distorted kind of like weird color blend, all right? So that's why I say let's go for the screen mode first and then play around and see if we can change everything else, okay? So that's looking pretty good. And then now if we move the blend mode underneath, all right, the blend if, okay, we can kind of get rid of some of this stuff, all right? Now, if we look closely, you're going to see that that little triangle has a line down the center of it. It's actually in two pieces, all right? And if you press and hold the Alt tab, the Alt or Option, it's going to allow you to split that little indicator, okay? And what that means is that that is the transition between where it disappears at 100%, it gives it a soft blend until it blends in with what is visible, all right? So it doesn't become a hard, jagged cutoff. It's a nice, soft transition, all right? We want that nice, soft transition, all right? And the nice thing is because we can preview it, we can actually see the effect of this, and we can decide, well, you know, how much of that atmosphere do we want influencing our moon, okay? All right. No, you don't need to make a hard choice at this point. It doesn't matter because we are working destructively. If you want to change the values somewhere down the road, we're more than welcome to reopen this and make whatever changes, all right? So I'm kind of liking this right now. We're going to hit OK. Oh, and I don't think we can we make that? Yeah, no, we're not going to. All right. This lighter area here that's still visible, we'll have to deal with that with a mask, okay? All right, so that's looking a little bit better, all right? I'm going to go ahead and create a mask, and if we go to our mask, we have the choice rectangular, elliptical, single row, or double row. I'm going to click on the elliptical. And I'm just going to Shift, Alt, and what it does is it allows me to draw a circle from the center, all right? So let me restart that. I'm going to find a roughly the visual center, Shift, Alt, or I'm not sure what exactly it is for Macs. It may not be Shift Option. It may be something else, but just play with it. You should be able to find it. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to kind of get it sort of relatively the right size. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? But one thing I want you to do is I want you to, up in the upper left-hand corner, I want you to make sure that you are not in the add, subtract, or combine mode. You're in the single mask mode, okay? That will allow you to hover anywhere inside your selection, and you can move that selection around, okay? If you are not in any of those, it will actually cut and move the cut piece, all right? So make
So
sure.
I can move the moon with that circle. I can move the moon anywhere you
Well,
want.
no, we want to move the moon with the layer, all right? We don't want to cut out the moon, all right? I'm just going to use this to create my mask, okay?
Okay.
All right, so now obviously the moon isn't quite full circle. It's actually looks like it's a little squashed, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect, okay? As a matter of fact, if it's just within the borders of the moon, that's fine, all right? I have that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the mask icon down here at the bottom of my layers panel, and it's going to create a mask, all right? And you can see that it got rid of everything around it, okay? And as a matter of fact, that's looking pretty darn good, okay?
We lost a little detail though from the original photo on the moon. Can we get that back, or do we lose it?
Uh, let me, what detail?
Well, it was the moon surface a little bit more distinct. I know there was still clouds over the whole moon, and it was a little fuzzy, but I think it was a little sharper than that.
Oh, yeah, it's a little bit more contrasty, yes. Yeah. All right. All right. So one thing we can do is actually one of the simplest things that I find with the screen mode is if you duplicate your layer, all right, Control J, Command J, duplicates it, makes it a little bit brighter. Okay. Now, oops. We can see that it's kind of affecting a little bit on that upper part, the dark part of the lighthouse. It's influencing it a little bit, okay? You can see, all right? So one thing that we could do is if we wanted to, we can mask, oops. Let's go to our lighthouse layer, and I can create a mask around this. I'm just using the magic wand, excuse me, the magic wand tool, and I'm just picking the blue sky all around it. There we go. And then now on this, I can just take a, I will need to invert my mask. All right, Control, Command I to oops. Control Z. Let's Control Shift I will invert it. Okay, select my mask, brush, black as my foreground, and I can go ahead and literally, I'm basically painting in or masking out that part of the lighthouse. Okay. All right, and then if I needed to, I can just go ahead and duplicate that to the other one. Okay. All right, and zoom out. Now we have our moon dropped in behind. And if we wanted to, we can group this. Shift, Control G, group. We'll call that super moon. We'll call it. All right. And then we can go ahead and let's try a hue saturation. We'll go ahead and link it to the underlying layer. And maybe try colorizing, see if color, saturation, luminosity. Oh, we're definitely going to lose. Okay. That's not going to work. Dump that. Let's try a solid color adjustment, see what happens. And we'll try a nice warm color. Okay. Alter option, hover in between, and we'll link it. Oh yeah, that's
Sun. Sun came up.
yeah. We're let's see. Okay, yeah, that's looking a little better. But we're losing all that nice contrast. So I'm not sure if I like that. Okay. But that's one option. And actually, you know what we could do is the other thing that we could do is I'm going to go ahead and cancel out. Let's see, where is it? Should be able to clear layer style. There we go. Clear layer style. All right. And we can apply a layer style to the group. All right. So we could, in essence, apply it as a pass through. All right. To that layer. Okay. So now we have a our normal moon. Okay. Instead of using a blend mode, all right, we keep the moon normal, and actually we can even get rid of that copy because we don't need it. All right. And we can apply the blend mode to the group. Okay. And now we can manipulate, all right, link it to the moon and maybe desaturate a little bit, brighten it up a little bit. And if we needed to, we could even change the colors a little bit. All right. That's working a little bit better, okay, than using the blend mode. Okay. All right, it's still not looking, it's looking a little weird on the bottom. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to need to, instead of, let me pull this up, instead of this nice sharp edge here, okay, all right, maybe what I'll do is I will blend it up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to use a nice soft round brush. I'm going to make it really, really large. Okay, black as my foreground color. All right, and I'm just going to carefully just start blending that moon up from the bottom. Okay.
Now, can you bring back the cloud cover on both sides of the moon?
In this particular case, no, because I used the mask. All right, and we're actually masking out all that area around here. All
Right.
right, I masked all that out. Okay, so at this point, I would need to just do a little color correction and see if we can blend those darker areas in, and that's where the blend if will come in a little bit more. All right, and allow us to bring that color in. Okay. The other way would be, all right, I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of that layer. I'm going to put it right on top. I'm going to turn off that, and I'm going to get rid of that mask for this one here. All right, so we're going to just delete that. Okay. All right. So the other way we can do this is we can say, okay, we have this gap. I need to fill in that gap. All right, so let me zoom out a little bit. I'm going to select my rectangular selection tool. I'm on the moon layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection, and I'm going to go in just a little bit into, all right, and grab this little bit of an edge, all right? Because in order for it to do a smart content aware fill, it needs some kind of reference. Okay, so I'm on the moon, on the copy of the moon layer here. I'm on that layer. Then we just go to edit, content aware fill. All right, it's going to give you some selections, and at this case I don't want any of the moon, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure none of the moon is selected, because I don't want that influencing. There we go. I don't know if you saw that, but
Yes.
there
Yeah.
was that little weirdness going
Yeah.
on here. All right, and I think that came from this bottom section. It was grabbing a section of this bottom part of the moon. All right, and now that looks a little bit more realistic. Okay, so I kind of like this. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and it adds it. Control Command D deselects it. Okay, and now, oh, and I had it put on a separate layer. I can go ahead and I'm just going to merge that down with the moon layer. Okay. Now at this point, we can do a couple of things. I can probably drop that behind our lighthouse. Okay. And then on the lighthouse layer, okay, we can do a, let's see, magic wand. All right, let's select. We'll select sky. It's gonna do its thing. All right, looks like it did a decent job. All right, I'm just gonna zoom in here. All right, and unfortunately, the quality of the image is going to present us with some problems. Okay, especially around the railings there. All right, so obviously we got some areas here that we need to kind of like contend with. I don't know how well that'll look, but I'm going to add those back in. If we need to, we can fiddle with that later. Okay? All right, but I want to add those little sections, maybe that section. All right. Again, remember, the better your selection, the better the end results are going to be. All right. So let's go ahead and add this section in here. That looks like a buoy. Okay. All right. Now, all I got to do is add a mask. All right. And what I want to do is invert my mask. Control Command I inverts it. Okay.
Whoa.
And yeah. All right. Again, remember earlier I said one of the things that really struck out to me was the fact that the sky was much, much darker than the water.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. Okay. And remember we said we're going to have issues around the
The gate.
the gate. All right. So let me just select a make my brush smaller and see if maybe I can clean that up a little bit. We got some really funky stuff. All right. Actually, let me look at so we got some weirdness going on here. Okay. So we can clean this up, or you know what? If I go to my image adjustments, okay, because I'm on the mask, okay, and the mask works in ranges from black to white. Anything that is white is going to allow the image to come through. Anything, the layer that the mask is on is going to allow it to come through. Anything that's black allows the underlying layer to come through. Anything gray does this kind of like invisibility finagling, all right? So what I want to do is I want to get rid of that gray. So I'm going to go here. I'm just going to select levels, all right? And I'm going to pull my black in, and it's going to get rid of that dark gray, all right? And if I bring in my whites in, it's going to get rid of this light gray, all right? So what I want to do is I want to push it closer to a true black and white, okay? You can see we got rid of all the really strange artifacting, okay? It's a little harsh. We can see some stair-stepping, but unfortunately, part of that problem is because we are dealing with a very low resolution JPEG image. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, if I wanted to, I can double click on that, bring up my mask tool, and we can apply a little bit of a feather. All right, obviously because this is a low pixel count image, it doesn't take much of a feather to get rid of that stair stepping. All right, soften up the edge, okay, and I'm just going to clean it up by increasing my contrast a little bit. Okay, by increasing the contrast, it really, really just gets rid of all that stair stepping. Okay. I don't like using the smooth tool because you can see what it does to the corners. Anything that has a corner, it just kind of gets rid of the corners. All right. So in this case, I just used the feather and the contrast. All right. And if you need to, you could also use the shift edge, but I don't think we need to in this particular case. All right, so I'm going to just return that back to 0. And then we're going to hit OK. Come in here. All right. And we still have some weirdness going on with the light blue. Okay. So one of the things that I'm going to want to do in this particular case is I want to match that upper sky, the new sky, and make it a little bit more closer to the original sky. So we want to lighten it up. All right. So let's try a curves adjustment. Okay. And because it's below our lighthouse, anything I do here, anything I do here, I know it's not going to affect the lighthouse. All right, so maybe we can brighten this up. Take our blue. Oops. All right, I'm not liking any of this. So there we go. All right. The other thing we could do is we can see if we can color match. All right, let's try adding a hue saturation and see if we can in our, let's see. All right, so make sure that the hue saturation icon is selected. You don't want to be on the mask. You want to be on the icon there. Okay. We're going to click on the little hand symbol here. Okay. And I'm just going to color pick that dark area. Okay. And now what that does is it gives me a selection. This is my range that it is selected. All right. And now if I manipulate that, you can see that it's only targeting that dark area that I selected. Okay. So we can manipulate that. All right. And in this case, maybe I want to add a little bit of saturation, add a little bit of lightness to it. Okay. And maybe shift it more towards a blue color that we get. Let's try colorize. Blue, add saturation, add lightness. Okay. All right. And unfortunately, it's also coloring the blue of, it's coloring the yellow part of the moon, but you can see that the sky is now blending a little bit better. Actually, you know what? Maybe even give it a little bit more of a greener tone. Okay. All right. All right. Now, if we look at this area here, you can see that it's blending in so much better. Okay. And then at this point, if we wanted to, hey, let's try an experiment. Let's bring up our blend if and see if we can bring some of that yellow back. All right, Alt Option to separate. There you go. Hit OK. And we have a little bit of a sensor spot there, but okay. What do you think of that?
That's very interesting.
That's looking, we got that nice interplay of warm tone to cool tone. Okay.
A question, just I don't want you to do it today or just if it's possible. let's say, for instance, if I wanted to put a reflection in the water with AI, would I be able to do that?
With AI,
Yeah.
you probably could, but you know what? We can probably do it. Uh,
But it would be have to be darker though. I mean, the whole.
all right, so we want a really light. Let's take our blue and
You froze up on the camera.
it froze up.
Yeah, you froze up. I can hear you, but yeah, you're
Oh,
there. You're back.
oh, okay, all right. I was gonna say I just looked up and
Yeah.
it wasn't frozen, so okay, all right. So I use a curve adjustment to really bring my lightness up. All right. I'm going to now take the mask and invert it, Control Command I. Okay. And then I can use a brush, maybe something with a little bit of texture to it, and white as my foreground color. I can probably start painting in my highlights.
Oh,
All right, and then once I have something in, you know, if we need to, now that I'm looking at it, we can probably uh, add a little bit of warmth to it. All right, so we go back to our curve, and let's go to the blue. And instead of making it blue, let's make it yellow. We're picking up some green, so let's the green. Let's take that and come on. What's going on here? Oh, less green. RGB. All right. Red. Magenta blue. Where's our blue? Actually, we can probably. There you go. And then back to our mask, and you know, if we need to paint in a little bit more, we can paint in a little bit more.
I like that very much.
Yeah. Okay. As a matter of fact, we can
Yeah, that adds to it.
maybe add a little bit more, so it looks like that's the reflection of the lighthouse.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's looking a lot better than previously. All right.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm seeing some weirdness going on here. So what we can do is, and that's on our moon layer. Okay. We can take our clone tool. Let's see, current layer, and I'm just going to select and paint in and just clean up. For some reason, it left a little bit of a holiday. I don't know why. Right along there. We just clone all that in, and there we go. That's looking better. Okay, Control 0. And we have that little spot, and I think that's on here. So let's use the, oops. Oh, no, it's not on there. Right, is it on here? It's on somewhere. All right, so I'll just use the spot healing. Okay, it's not on that layer. What layer is it on? Okay, and here's where we go on and off.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Turn the eyeballs on and off till we find.
it's gotta be here, right? It's not on here. That's strange. All right, what's this layer?
That's all right. Okay.
That's a nothing layer. Okay. That's our moon layer. I'm not seeing anything there. Okay. I'm not seeing anything there. That's nothing there. There's nothing there unless we, yeah. Oh, that's very strange. That's very strange. I have no idea. But what we can do is I have a blank layer all the way in the top. I'm going to just sample all layers. Go ahead and get rid of it that way. All right.
Sneaky.
That was, yeah, that's very bizarre. I don't know where
Well,
that came from.
Well, it looks like we got rid of our reflection though. Is missing.
Oh, our reflection. That's the layer that okay, see? Yeah, it pays to label stuff. There we go. All right. So now we go and we clean that up. You're right. Let's label that. Reflection.
Actually, look quite good.
Okay. All right. So combination of blend if, combination of masking, and little color correction, and obviously little AI expand. Okay. All right, let's try. We got time for another one. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save. Enhanced SR PSD. Yeah, go ahead and save it. Okay. All right, we can close that one out and we'll close this one out. We'll go back to Lightroom. Number 1 or number 2? I kind of like number 1 because we have these lights going on in here. Actually, that's a reflection of the sunset, isn't it? Those aren't internal lights.
No, let's see. Was there? Yes. The sun was still out at that time.
Yeah. All right. So I kind of like that. And shall we try this nice crisp moon?
Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
use that one. All right. So this one on the long edge 1490, and this one on the long edge 1080. So we can open them both up as a single file. All right. But what I want to do with this one, I'm going to go ahead and bring it into the develop module first. And I'm going to prep it for working with that other moon. All right. So I definitely want to make this look more like a night shot. So I'm going to cool this off a lot. I'm going to darken it up, but not so much that we lose our too much of the tonality. Okay. And I think we need to straighten this out just a little bit. All right. The warm tones, let's see if we can bring those out a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Let's try color grading. So in the highlights, we want to add a lot of warmth. Okay. Do we add a little luminance? sense? Yeah. Okay, and in the cool tones, maybe a little magenta, just a touch. Okay. That's looking a little bit more, in my opinion, a little more receptive to a moon being behind it. All right, makes sense?
Yes.
All right, so, okay. All right, so we're going to select that one. We're going to command select that one and edit in open as layers in Photoshop. All right. And we're not going to have the issue as previously because the bigger image is the lighthouse, and that's the one that we are going to use. Okay. All right. Control-0. All right. I'm going to go ahead and relabel this lighthouse and relabel this one moon. Okay. And I'm going to take that and bring it above. Bring the opacity down. Okay. And then we can play around with position. All right. Actually, you know what? Let me bring the opacity back up. Okay. Let's go ahead and right away, I'm going to go ahead with the blend if, because we have literally black all around the outer part. So if I move that ever so slightly, you can see, I don't know if you can see it, all right, but current layer, it went from 0 to 1, and it got rid of all that, all right, because everything, all that black was 100% black, no tonality whatsoever, all right. There's a little bit underneath, all right, but we can get rid of that by Alter Option and splitting that into 2, all right. What's gonna be careful because we don't want to punch holes in the dark parts of the moon itself, okay. But now we can kind of maneuver. You can see some remnants. That's okay, no problem. We can get rid of that later with a mask. But right now, this allows us to turn all that black transparent so we can kind of sort of position this. And now if I bring a little bit of transparency to it, okay, it allows us to see the position of the moon in relation to everything else, okay? And if we don't want to resize the moon, which I don't think we need to resize the moon, we can have it so it's just dropped behind the tree line. What do you think of that, Alan?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's what I was hoping.
That kind of looks right. Okay.
Yeah.
Bring the let's commit to that. Bring the opacity back up. Okay. In this case, I'm going to get rid of my blend if. Okay. And we can probably do this with a lighten or screen, or even linear. How about any of these? No. Color dodge, linear dodge. We may be able to get away with that one just by itself. Okay. We need to create a mask. All right. So I'm going to hide this one temporarily. I'm going to select the lighthouse layer. Okay. My lighthouse layer. Come up to select. All right. Halfway down, select sky. Let the AI do its thing. And hit, if I hit the mask, it's going to mask everything but, obviously. So just Control Command I to invert it. And we bring that back in. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we need the moon and the background there. Okay. All right. So we have a problem. Okay. I masked the sky, which is what I wanted, but it applied the mask to the lighthouse layer. All right. And I think what I want to do is apply that mask to the moon layer. So I'm just going to take that mask and I'm going to drag it down, okay, and invert that. Control I. And bring it above. There we go. All right, and we have some funkiness going on here. Okay, so why? Let's take a look at our mask. So Alt or Option, click on the mask. I'm not seeing why we were getting that funkiness. Where is that funkiness coming from? Oops. See this weird stuff? Is that? Yeah, it's definitely coming from the moon. Okay. So because we're using a whatchamacallit, a blend mode, okay, if that's not 100% black with that linear add or linear dodge, we're going to get some artifacting. So what we can do is let's bring that in, get myself a round brush, make it a little bit larger. Where are we? Black is my foreground color. I can go ahead and clean that up right there. Okay. And how about this side? That side looks good. All right. Okay, now if I wanted to, can we colorize that moon? Let's try. Hue saturation layer, I'm going to go ahead and clip it to the moon layer. Colorize, and let's bring in a yellowish color. Add some saturation, maybe not so bright. Okay. I don't know, maybe reduce the opacity a little bit so it's not as, oh, sorry, we got to go back to the moon. Let's bring the opacity down. Okay. That one was even easier. All right, so let's add some more saturation. There we go.
Now, could we put a reflection in that water?
Ah, okay. All right. Here's another way of doing a reflection. Ready?
Okay, ready.
Okay. I'm going to, let's see, select my hue saturation and the moon, all right, layer, and I'm going to go ahead and group it. So this is my moon, all right. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that, Control J, all right, and this will be highlight, water, highlight. Okay. We can get rid of the mask. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that whole thing down, literally down here. Okay. I'm going to image, flip vertically. Oh, nope. no, sorry. Edit, transform, flip vertically. All right. Okay. All right. So basically what I did is I copied it, I flipped it, and I'm using it kind of as the basis for my reflection. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my layer style and the underlying. All right, I'm just going to bring the darks. I want the dark part of the water to come through. Okay, I'm going to separate this, alter option to separate, give myself a nice separation. Play around with it a little bit. Okay, and now I need to, where's my moon? Here, I'm going to take that and I'm going to filter, blur, little Gaussian blur. Good amount of blur, hit OK, and there we go. Just like that.
Oh, that's phenomenal. That is a, yeah. The moon in the water looks great. The back lighthouse, a little dull, not a lot of contrast or not a lot of detail, but I I know what I could do next time. I know what to do.
Yeah.
First of
All
all,
right. Well, we
send you
can.
the raw file. That's the first thing I'm going to do.
Yes. Yes. You know.
I wasn't thinking.
So
I wasn't thinking.
so let's just. I'm going to lighten this up. Okay. Curves adjustment. Invert my mask. Okay. Soft round brush. White as my foreground color, and I'm just going to paint that back in. You know, whatever you want to bring some highlights back to. You know, whatever you want to bring the highlights back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that looks better. All right, so a couple different ways. Some fairly simple techniques. Blend layer blend modes and blend if. Hopefully you see that it's, you know, especially the blend if. Blend if has a lot of potential to be used pretty much on a lot of your images. You just got to keep in mind that it operates on the light and dark values of for the sliders. Okay, for your sliders. Okay, it operates on the light or dark values either of your current layer, right? The layer that is selected, okay, or everything else underneath. It doesn't matter. Doesn't
No matter
matter.
how many layers you have underneath, it's
That's
going to
right.
affect them all. Okay.
It's, yeah, because remember, your layer stack, as you add additional edits to it, you know, all that visibility travels through. It passes through from one layer to the next. Okay. So in this case, we have our cancel, our lighthouse, which is our bottommost layer. You can see everything above that has a transparency, a translucency to it. All right. So all those layers are building up on that base layer. Okay. So everything here that is visible, all right, to that upper layer is going to be affected. All right. Or affect the blend if. Okay. All right. So just keep that in mind. All right. And as just keep in mind that what you are preserving are everything built on values from dark to light, everything between those little pips. Okay. All right. Any questions on any of these?
If you send me those photos back and I open up in Lightroom Classic, will would I still see all the adjustments that you have, like just like you see right here?
No, I would have to export the changes for you. All right. But what I'll
Okay.
do is I'll save this file,
Yeah.
save. All right. It'll save that as a PSD
Okay.
file.
So anyway, I could dissect it if once I get the photo back.
So yes. So what you'll
Oh,
see is everything here. All
yes,
right. All these layers
yes.
you will
That's what I'm
see.
looking for.
All right.
Yeah.
So when I send you the PSD file, you will have access to all of this.
Oh, great,
Okay.
great. Because it's yes, it's over. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's over my head.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. Trust me, been there, done that. Okay. All right. All right. Any questions on any of? Oops. Where's my? There we go. Okay. And so there is that one, and let's synchronize folder and bring that other one in. That one, okay, import, there we go. Okay, so where are we? Moonscapes. That one and that one.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, any questions?
Well, I'm gonna fool around with it for a week before I get anywhere with it. But
Yeah.
I really
yeah.
like that. I really like the possibilities.
Yeah. Now, if you wanted to, you could. It'll be a little tricky because what you can do is you can get this moon, which is sharper and clearer,
Yeah.
and replace this moon with it. But you can preserve all the atmospherics
Right.
from this. It's tricky. You're gonna have to play around with a combination of masking and the blend if, all right, to preserve the darker parts of the atmospheric, right? Because you can see where the clouds cross the moon.
Right.
Those are the darker parts. So if you preserve those, okay, and get rid of the lighter part of this image here, okay, make this moon, the sharper moon, the same
Yeah.
size, okay, and place it on the layer directly underneath. In essence, what you'll have is a sharper moon, but you'll preserve the clouds in this one.
That would be
Okay.
great. Yeah.
But it's the same principles here. We're just adding another element, another layer. Okay. So
How about the pixel things? We have to do the same thing, reduce them down? Because one's 1,100, 1,200, the other's 900.
well, he's got the originals.
Okay.
All right. So Allen will be working from,
The raw.
the full size images.
Yep.
Okay. And he'll have less trouble with that than I did.
Sorry to do that to you.
No, it's all right. It's all right. And the masking will be better because you'll have more pixels to work with. You know, the pixel density does play a big role in the quality of your selections as well. So you shouldn't have as much difficulty with the blend ifs as I did. All right, because you saw that, you know, a small move made big impact simply because I didn't have the pixel density here. So, okay.
All right.
Any other questions? No questions? Okay. Well, looking forward to seeing what you create with your images. All right. Now that you have some little bit of a roadmap to work with, you know. So, okay.
That was great. That was far more than I expected. I mean, there's a lot more to it than I expected, but this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
This, with my ADHD brain, this would take me hours to put this together, to really think this out and put this together. Looks good. Looks good. I like the first one you did better for some strange reason. I don't know. I don't know. It seems more peaceful to me than the
It's
second one.
yeah. It's a simpler composition.
Yes, and
It's
I
a
also
minimalist composition.
yes,
But
yes. That's what I like. I also like how you highlighted the ocean in front of the lighthouse too. You know, it's would you consider that a leading line?
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. Because it brings the eye in. It leads you into that scene. All right. As a matter of fact, it especially with that first I'm sorry, the second one here,
Hmm.
we have, you know, um, squint your eyes just a little bit. You're going to see that
Yeah.
we have an area of brightness, an area of brightness, and an area of brightness. Okay. And you can see that, you know, it scales down. All right.
Hmm.
This one here is the brightest of all. All right. So we have this kind of like a sandwich. All right. So what happens is our eye bounces back and forth along this line, you know?
Hmm.
So if we look at it compositionally, let's see, let's just pull this one here. Remember, we read left to right, top to bottom. Okay, so our eye comes in from this side, right? There's nothing here. Okay, but there is something here. All right, so not anything strong enough to really pull our eye down. Okay, um, but it's enough to give us a direction. All right, so all this darkness, all right, we encounter nothing up here. Our eyes drop down slightly and encounters this, and it says, hey, bring your eye this way. And then we hit this area of brightness. Okay. And remember, one of the earliest things that we made the decision on was to bring the brightness of the lighthouse into the brightness of the moon. Okay. To incorporate it so it creates, you know, an element within itself. Okay. And then by adding the brightness that kind of mirrors it, we have this very strong vertical. All right. So we have a strong horizontal with the jetty. All right. And a little bit here. Okay. But we have a strong vertical being created by light. Okay. So our
Okay.
horizontal is created by darkness. Our vertical is created by light. Okay. And then it kind of terminates here, this horizontal line. So we have this very, very small, not enough to make the eye completely go off the edge, right? which is kind of nice. Had this jetty gone all the way across, would have been a totally different story. But it drops off here. It's not strong enough to make the eye continue, so we're kind of forced back in. All right. So yeah, overall, this is a very strong minimalist image. You know, even the lighthouse by itself, you know, strong minimalist, but what kills it is that there is no all right, so remember we have three elements. We have luminosity, we have color, and we have texture. All right. If we look at luminosity, all right, everything from literally 1/4 of the frame down is dark. Okay. And then we have 3/4 of this is mid-tone. All right. And then we have literally like 5% of the entire frame is highlight. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So guess where our eye goes?
It would go to
Okay?
the
It
lighthouse
goes to the
first.
lighthouse. All right. It travels along this path of black to that. Okay. But so we have three values that we're playing with. Okay. When it comes to color, all right, we have it's pretty much monochromatic. Okay. Everything is that kind of like teal blue. The lower section is darker than the upper section, but it's still within the same color family. The only different color is the, all right, so we have blue here. We have blue here. All right. We have a spot of white. All right. But white is a neutral. Okay. Black is also a neutral. Right. And then we have this little spot of red and yellow. Okay. So we have that spot of color that just pulls us in and becomes kind of like the focal point. All right. There's a little bit of bounce between the white of the lighthouse and the brightness of the light that we look at cohesively, but it's that pop of color that creates the interest for that focal point. All right. So that's what we have for color, and that's why it works nicely in conjunction to the simplicity of the composition that it pulls our eye in. But then when it comes to texture, all the texture is literally in this 1/4 section down at the bottom. Everything else is flat. Okay? So our eye immediately drops to the bottom part of the image. There's absolutely nothing up here to bring our eye back up. All right. So if we were to add some cloud texture in that, it would create a little bit more of a balance. All right. It would have to be a subtle texture in order to maintain the minimalist element of the composition. Okay. Or you can drop in the moon. It'll create texture, and by matching the yellow of the light, we now have a much stronger focal point that just works together.
If I did not have the moon or the texture there, can you get rid of it for a second so I can tell you how I would edit the picture? There we are. If I were just this, I would crop this a lot. I would crop, I would probably make this a 16 by 10. I mean, yeah, 16 by 9 or panoramic. Because that's, yeah. That's a stronger picture than what you had before if you don't have the moon and the texture.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Uh, but you have to make sure that your camera has the resolution for that.
Oh, okay. My camera does.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
my camera does, and most of what I do is for sharing or submitting for edit or submitting for competition in North Haven Camera Club. So the most we can have is 1400 pixels wide, the most we can have wide is 1400, and the most we can have in height is 1050. So I think a 24 megapixel camera should be able to handle that, right?
Uh, how many pixel camera?
24 megapixel
Oh
camera.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, I'm not doing. My thinking of was this would be good enough for either sharing on an internet 1200 pixels wide or for competition 1400 pixels wide.
Right. Oh yes, yes, absolutely. Right. Now, here in this particular case, if we do want to maintain the sky, you know, don't be afraid of open areas. All right. Uh, Open areas give a sense of scale as well. All right. So
Mhm.
I know you guys have listened to me discussing the different elements of composition beyond the rule of thirds.
Mhm. Yes.
All right. So um, open space. You balance it with areas of interest. All right, against open space. That open space, because there's nothing for the eye to land on, allows you to really scan it very, very quickly, go to the area of interest, and depending on the balance, so in this case, everything's on the lower quarter, all right,
Oh,
which is nice because it's not on the third. It's not on the third. All right,
okay. Yes.
everybody.
Yes.
All right, so imagine if this been on the third, we would have had all this water down here.
Mhm.
That
Yes.
so we would have the lighthouse just kind of floating in that middle space. Okay, but no, Alan, I love it. You brought it down into that lower quarter. Okay, you gave it plenty of breathing room, uh, and it just kind of enhances that feeling of isolation that most lighthouses have. Okay, um, it plays really really well with the theme of lighthouse isolation. Okay, historically lighthouse keepers have always been isolated. Lighthouses alone
Mhm.
are isolated on a little, in this case, a little jetty, but oftentimes they're on a little small little outcrop or island or someplace remote. Then the properties of the lighthouse, lighting the way for ships out in the open sea, the ships have nothing to look at other than the stars in the sky. All right. So here it is, we're presented with this wide open sky and this lonely lighthouse, and it works really, really well, you know. So I like the image for its simplicity. And yeah, I also like the idea of placing the moon because that just adds another element, but it still plays in with that minimalist feeling. So really good decision on your part, Alan.
Thank you.
So
Well, I wanted room for the moon. That was my full intention.
yeah, okay. So yeah, so
So when
pre-
Alan, when you took this picture, you were thinking of the moon and matting it here? Is that
Yep.
okay?
Yes. Yep.
Sorry, Doc, I didn't mean to
oh
jump
yeah,
on.
no, that's fine. Yeah, because that was a conversation that Alan and I had prior to this. Is that he wanted that, but he just couldn't get it.
Okay.
You know, so composition was the way to accomplish what he couldn't do it physically.
Mhm.
So, okay, awesome. So
All
now
right.
what I just did here in Lightroom is I just did a linear gradient and I darkened the top
Yeah, like that.
so that it kind of matches tonally with the bottom. And it just kind of allows the eye to kind of bounce up and down, right? Still maintaining the simplicity. But now we have one smaller, very tiny element that was added, and that was playing around with luminosity. So, okay. All right, gentlemen. As always,
All
it
right.
was a pleasure.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much.
I will send you the PSC files.
When you have a chance. Thank
Yep.
you.
Probably in 2 individual emails. I don't know. I don't know how big they are. So
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Whenever you got a chance, I much appreciate it. Very
all
much.
righty.
All right. Till
We
next
shall
time.
see you next week.
Next week.
All
Thanks,
right.
Doc.
Have a
Have
good
a
one,
good night.
guys. All right. Here we go.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.